Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. Share this everywhere. To the viewers in Hawaii, Hawaiian Princess, and everybody here, and to the people of Hawaii, God bless you. There was just an earthquake now. You can see that in the news. If you haven't heard of it, hope you're okay. Everyone watching in Hawaii, Hawaiian Princess, hope you're okay. God bless you and everybody here. Have a wonderful, wonderful, hopefully you're going to have an amazing live stream listening to certain victory for Trump. We'll get to that in a second. Hit subscribe to my super chat. Feel free to give a super chat during the arguments presented. You're going to hear right now Clarence Thomas give Trump 2024 victory. Subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new, to read my writing in The Hill, The Huffington Post, Salon, The Jerusalem Post, The Federalist, other publications. Go to hagoodman.com. Let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. You also hear Trump victory speech after, at the end of this live stream. And basically, you're going to hear from Clarence Thomas. He's going to dismantle the entire argument right now. Share this everywhere because it's very, very important. This gives Trump certain victory, and we'll talk about that right now. Everyone, this is so important. Just listen to the following, and you'll understand why Trump wins.
On elections.
But it would seem that particularly after Reconstruction and after the Compromise of 1877 and during the period of Redeemers, that you would have that kind of conflict. There were a plethora of Confederates still around. There were any number of people who would continue to either run for state offices or national offices. So it would seem that would suggest that there would at least be a few examples of national candidates being disqualified, if your reading is correct.
Well, there were certainly national candidates who were.
There has never been an example of a national candidate being disqualified. The Colorado lawyers, when confronted with Clarence Thomas and Kavanaugh and Roberts and others in the Supreme Court, give history lessons. They give their interpretation of why these laws were enacted and the historical context. The Supreme Court justices don't care about historical context. They know historical context better than the lawyers. They care about the laws. They care about they care about Supreme Court and legal precedent. They don't care about a history lesson. And whenever the Colorado lawyers are caught with an argument that isn't sound, or a faulty argument, or a weak argument, they then go back to, well, Justice, this was actually meant to do this. It was within a historical context of the following, and let me give you a lesson on the history of this specific statute or law or this specific precedent. The fact is that Clarence Thomas is pointing out it's never been used before to prevent a candidate on the national stage. End of story. He hasn't been convicted, nor was it an actual rebellion. It wasn't at all. If that was a rebellion, you had a rebellion every single day that summer. And I agree with why people peacefully demonstrated that summer. But that summer, there was far more chaos and mayhem and lives lost and destruction than that one day. In fact, there are many individual days where there was far more. But anyway, listen to Clarence Thomas because he continues to completely dismantle the argument. He asks, has it ever been used before? Because you cannot have liberal state Supreme Court justices watching MSNBC and CNN and ignoring, for example, the footage given by Tucker Carlson, where people are just acquitted, people having been acquitted because they were allowed into the building by law enforcement. That is not a rebellion. But they're actually, it's not a rebellion, and we'll get to where Trump's lawyer says he never admits to any rebellion, and it wasn't that at all. It didn't even fit that description.
Disqualified by Congress refusing to seat them.
I understand that, but that's not this case. Did states disqualify them? That's what we're talking about here. I understand Congress would not seat them.
Other than the example I gave, no. But again, Your Honor, that's not surprising because there wouldn't have been, states certainly wouldn't have the authority to remove a sitting
So what's the purpose
officer.
what was the purpose of the Section 3? The states were sending people. The concern was that the former Confederate states would continue being bad actors. And the effort was to prevent them from doing this. And you're saying that, well, this also authorized states to disqualify candidates. So what I'm asking you for, if you are right, what are the examples?
Well, Your Honor, the examples are states excluded many candidates for state office, individuals holding state offices. We have a number of published cases of states considering that.
I understand the states controlling state elections and state positions. What we are talking about here are national candidates. I understand. You look at Foner or Foote, Shelby Foote, or McPherson, they all talk about, of course, the conflict after the Civil War, and there were people who felt very strongly about retaliating against the South, the radical Republicans. But they did not think about authorizing the South to disqualify national candidates. And that's the argument you're making. And what I would like to know is do you have any examples of this?
Many of those historians have filed briefs in our support in this case.
You can also find conservative historians who think this is completely absurd. That's a typical public relations ploy of liberal Democrats in the Democratic Party or attorneys, lawyers trying to argue a case before the Supreme Court. Well, we have 50 intelligence officials, we have 50 former employees, we have 50 DOJ employees who've said that Trump is a menace. We have 100 experts, we have 200 people who have written in support of our position. Who cares? You can find historians who will disagree with the Colorado position. There are a great many historians who will disagree with the Colorado position on this issue. What Clarence Thomas was asking, for example, Victor Davis Hanson, amazing historian, completely disagrees with the Colorado viewpoint. Okay? What Clarence Thomas was asking is simply, where is the evidence this was ever used, or this could ever have been used? Where was the evidence that this had been used on a national stage? The response was, well, we have historians that say, who cares? That's not an answer to Justice Thomas's question. Justice Clarence Thomas was asking specifically, when was this ever used to disqualify a national candidate? And the answer is, of course, never. And we get Democrats breaking norms and traditions all the time because they accuse Trump of breaking norms and traditions when they, of course, themselves are breaking norms and traditions all the time. Let's continue.
Making the point that the idea of the 14th Amendment was that both states and the federal government would ensure rights, and that if...
Don't lecture a Supreme Court justice on the idea. Why would anyone lecture the justices on the idea of the 14th Amendment? We have these historians that agree. The historical context here is, that's all nonsense. Was it ever used to disqualify somebody? No. Then why are you using it with Trump? He hasn't even been convicted. Well, we think he committed a rebellion in our viewpoint. Sorry. You can't influence the entire national election a federal contest, a presidential contest, because of the liberal sensibilities that certain justices in blue states have. If a Supreme Court in Colorado, if the people who voted read the New York Times and MSN and Washington Post and MSNBC and CNN and think that only the footage they saw gives them the entire story, and they ignore the fact that people were actually being let into the building by law enforcement and people have already been acquitted because of that, that is not enough. You cannot simply disqualify Trump because liberal sensibilities lead you to that conclusion. This is not about reality. It's about sensibilities. Well, we think it was. Look what took place. No, it wasn't. You didn't think it was throughout that summer. The same people who want to disqualify Trump have made zero attempt at finding out who engaged in chaos and mayhem outside the White House late May in 2020, where the President of the United States of America had to seek shelter. Was that not a form of rebellion? According to the standard that they applied to Trump in January, of course it was. But see, that's not the way Democrats work. What happened in late May is completely different, even though the president himself had to seek shelter. So, this is the end of any attempt at defeating Trump. The only way they can defeat Trump, the only way, is if the Republican Party disqualifies him for having been convicted of hush money, which they might convict him of just because it's New York, Tammany Hall. And the FEC fined Clinton and the DNC, not Trump, because of the Steele dossier, working with other countries, as always, Democrats accusing others of what they do. And that's the only way, is the Republican Party disqualifying Trump, and also if the Supreme Court were to rule, which the Supreme Court will give a huge, monumental, and Clarence Thomas and others have given Trump 2024. But if the Supreme Court said, well, we're not going to decide whether or not he did engage in a rebellion, but if the Supreme Court, and this is actually a really smart, not wise, but very smart move by Democrats in Colorado, all they had to do was get the Supreme Court to decide on whether, in theory, they could disqualify Trump based on a rebellion, not whether or not he committed the rebellion. Just in terms of a scholarly pursuit, is it constitutional to use the 14th Amendment if you think someone engaged in a rebellion, which is what Democrats are saying? We think he did. Not we can prove he did, because they can't prove he did, because he didn't. Nor has he been convicted. So the Supreme Court, there's like a 0.5% chance, not even 0.01% chance the Supreme Court could say, well, you know, we're going to say that, well, you know, he's disqualified, Trump is, because, you know, they thought he engaged in a rebellion, so therefore they had the right to say that and disqualify him. It's just state by state, whatever the state feels. If it's a blue state, then they can feel that he engaged in a rebellion. If it's a red state, they can also feel, and it's up to them. They won't do that though, because like Justice Clarence Thomas said, where are the examples of this? Where are the examples? There are no examples, and he hasn't been convicted. And you can't have a state. The 14th Amendment was not, if you want to talk about history, was not created to ensure that one state could ruin an entire presidential election for the entire country. But this is really, really interesting here. You should listen to Trump's attorney, Mitchell. He is unbelievable. He's very, 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 very good. Hit subscribe right now if you're new to the channel. Again, to the people of Hawaii, God bless you.
historical context that seems to demonstrate that their concern or their focus was not about the presidency. I just don't understand why you're giving that argument up.
There is some evidence to suggest that, Justice.
Is there any evidence to suggest that the presidency was what they were focused on?
There is some evidence of that. There were people saying we don't want Jefferson Davis to be elected president, and there was also one of the drafts of Section 3 specifically mentioned the presidency and the vice presidency.
But it wasn't the final.
It wasn't the final. It wasn't. Yes,
right.
I'm sorry. It wasn't the final enactment, but it does show that there was some concern by some people about Confederate insurrectionists ascending to the presidency. And we didn't want to make a law office history type argument where we just look at the historical evidence and pick the evidence that we like and interpret it tendentiously, because the other side can get back with us and throw this countervailing evidence back in our face. So we wanted to focus more on the text of the Constitution, because this was ultimately a compromise provision that was enacted in Section 3.
All right, let me ask you another question about the states, because you have forcefully made an argument about the states not being able to enforce Section 3. So if we agree with you on that, what happens next? I mean, I thought you also wanted us to end the litigation. So is there a possibility that this case continues in federal court if that's our conclusion?
I don't see how it could unless Congress were to enact a statute in response to this court's decision.
So your point is that we would have to say congressional enacting legislation is necessary for either state or federal enforcement.
That's correct.
All right. Final question. The Colorado Supreme Court concluded that the violent attempts of the petitioner's supporters in this case to halt the count on January 6th.
This is very important, and Justice Jackson is highlighting that Democrats in Colorado found that Trump committed a rebellion. Number one, he did not tell anyone, nor did he organize any effort to rebel. Number two, and this is a huge point that Trump's lawyer is going to make, a huge point. Had they listened to Trump, they wouldn't have committed criminal acts. The people who committed criminal acts did so because they had free will and they did not listen to Trump, who said go peacefully. Had they actually listened to the man, he specifically stated go peacefully, but they didn't. They didn't. And they were not media or savvy in terms of politics. They did not realize that this would be used, any criminal activity would be used by the United States government, by the media, by Democrats, by Hollywood, by everyone to silence the average American, especially conservatives, especially supporters of Trump. That was the worst thing that could ever have happened that day for Trump and anyone who supports Trump. The worst, the absolute worst thing. Because all Democrats needed, at any point, a phone call. Impeach! A phone call. They impeached him on a phone call. If he had Hunter's laptop, they would never have impeached him. Because there is bribery and graft within those emails. How can you use your influence on the company's behalf as one of the emails? But the justice here is acknowledging that Colorado viewed him to have committed a rebellion. It's important to note that the people who engaged in criminal activity did not listen to Trump. Had they listened to Trump, they would have gone peacefully. Then he said, disperse, listen to law enforcement, remain peaceful. No, they didn't listen to him. Democrats and media would have you believe that Trump directed these people, but he didn't. There are examples of Democrats directing people to commit criminal acts. Okay, there's one congresswoman who literally gave specific directions on what to do if you see a Trump supporter. Make a crowd, get in their faces, say they're not welcome. So these are specific acts that are criminal acts. Trump did not do that. He did not give anyone a specific command or even a request or directive. If anything, he said remain peaceful, and they didn't. They didn't listen to him, which is the problem. Then it was an unarmed, apparently, rebellion. where only supporters of Trump lost their lives that day, and then a law enforcement official lost his life after the event. But I just want to give you that context because the viewpoint of the Colorado Supreme Court is a viewpoint only derived from MSNBC and CNN footage, not from the footage that Fox News published through Tucker Carlson.
Qualified as an insurrection, as defined by Section 3, and I read your opening brief to accept that those events counted as an insurrection, but then your reply seemed to suggest that they were not. So what is your position as to that?
We never.
This is huge. This is also important, almost as important as the Clarence Thomas exchange, but this is really, really important.
What is your position as to that?
We never accepted or conceded in our opening brief that this was an insurrection. What we said in our opening brief was President Trump did not engage in any act that can plausibly be characterized as insurrection.
All right, so why would this not be an insurrection? What is your argument that it's not? Your reply brief says that it wasn't because I think you say it did not involve an organized attempt to overthrow the government. So
that's one of many reasons, but for an insurrection there needs to be an organized, concerted effort to overthrow the government of the United States through violence. And this
so the point is that a chaotic effort to overthrow the government is not an insurrection?
No, we didn't concede that it's an effort to overthrow the government either, Justice Jackson, right? None of these criteria were met. This was a riot. It was not an insurrection. The events were shameful, criminal, violent, all of those things, but it did not qualify as insurrection as that term is used in Section 3.
Thank you.
So you can look right here. I'm going to go ahead. Trump is up 2 points nationally, okay, but here, no Federal Bureau, no evidence. The Daily Beast has right here, Federal Bureau of Investigation found no evidence Trump or allies organized any potential rebellion. End of story. The justice asked very good questions, brought up some very good points, but it's end of story. This is the Daily Beast, not a friend of Trump. Okay? Like the Washington Post and CNN and the New York Times, MSNBC, the New Yorker, the Atlantic, Mother Jones, The Nation, the Daily Beast is part of a whole bunch of publications that despise Trump. They have no incentive to publish this article other than the truth. He did not have, there was no evidence at all. Because he didn't engage in any organized effort. He didn't organize an effort, and it wasn't a chaotic effort to rebel against the United States government. There were no leaders. It was just chaos and mayhem. Again, I support why people demonstrated that summer. Every single day that summer was exactly or worse as the day that the January Commission spent a year and a half or 2 years on. See, Kinzinger and Cheney voted alongside Trump over 90% of the time, according to 538. But I don't remember Kinzinger or Cheney shedding any tears about what took place late May in front of the White House when you had publications mocking Trump, the President of the United States of America, for seeking shelter from left-leaning organizations or left-leaning demonstrators. Let's put it that way. Nobody can deny demonstrators weren't left-leaning. Again, I support why people demonstrated peacefully, not why people committed everything from, CNN had a building set ablaze behind the reporter, and they said it was fiery but mostly peaceful. Media and Democrats and America's political establishment tried desperately to either almost give tacit approval to the mayhem that summer, but they tried desperately to not show any outrage or indignation over the endless, billions and billions in property damage and lives lost and chaos and mayhem and curfews every single day that summer. But that one day in January, terrible day, should never have taken place. It was the worst thing that could that day in January was the worst thing that could ever have happened to people who support Trump. It led to tremendous censorship, which is what Democrats love to do anyway. Hunter's laptop, 50 intelligence officials come out of nowhere saying it was a Kremlin plot. Complete lies. But anyway, he didn't engage in any rebellion. That is an opinion not based on fact. This is really interesting, Justice Kavanaugh right here. Let's listen to Kavanaugh.
You're welcome. Justice Kavanaugh, the concerns of some question have been the states having such power over a national office, other questions about the different states having different standards of proof. And they seem underscored by this case, at least the dissenting opinion below. Justice Sommore said, I've been involved, quote, I've been involved in the justice system for 33 years now, and what took place here doesn't resemble anything I've seen in a courtroom, end quote. And then added, quote, what transpired in this litigation fell woefully short of what due process demands, end quote. Now, I don't know whether I agree or not. I'm not going to take a position on that, but the fact that someone's complaining not about the bottom line conclusion, but about the very processes that were used in the state would seem to, and that would be permitted, seems to underscore the concerns that have been raised about state power. Just wanted to give you a chance to address that because that was powerful language. Again, not disagreeing about the conclusion, but about the very fairness of the process.
Yes, Your Honor, but that language was, with respect to Justice Sommore, just not correct. President Trump had a 5-day trial in this case.
So the lawyer for Colorado is trying to contradict a witness to how everything went down, how they came to this conclusion within the Supreme Court. And, Trump had this, he was able to get this done, and he didn't. It's like, Colorado is a blue state, okay? It votes Democrat, okay? There's politics involved in this. Anyway, let's just continue.
He had the opportunity to call any witnesses that he wanted. He had the opportunity to cross-examine our witnesses. He had the opportunity to testify if he wanted to testify.
Again, but this is almost a lie by omission. So what if he had those opportunities? Is it possible also he had those opportunities, he didn't take them, and yet there was a miscarriage of justice in other examples where there was a miscarriage of justice in terms of how the Supreme Court in Colorado came to the conclusion he engaged in a rebellion, therefore disqualified him? So what if Trump could have done this and that? Maybe he didn't because the Supreme Court justices were laying some type of legal trap where they wanted him to, get involved. A lot of people, there are a lot of reasons why Trump wouldn't have tried to battle the Colorado Supreme Court. Maybe it wasn't prudent at that point because the other, procedures that they ignored made any attempt at trying to prevent them from disqualifying him obsolete. Well, let's continue.
Testify. And of course the process was expedited because ballot access decisions are always on a fast schedule. But in this whole case, from the trial court all the way up to this court, President Trump has never identified a single process other than expert depositions that he wanted to have that he didn't get. He had the opportunity for fact witness depositions. He had the
But we're talking about, Kavanaugh was talking about how the justices came to their conclusion, which, from what I believe Kavanaugh was saying, one of the justices at the Colorado Supreme Court actually stated that in this person's years of experience on the Supreme Court, from what I understand, I could be wrong, but from what I understand what Kavanaugh just said, this person had never seen this type of outcome derived from, various tactics or various procedures that were ignored or implemented.
Opportunity to call witnesses remotely. He didn't use all of his time at trial. There was ample process here, and this is how ballot access determinations in election cases are decided all the time.
Okay. Second question. Some of the rhetoric of your position, I don't think it is your position, but some of the rhetoric of your position seems to suggest unless the states can do this, no one can prevent insurrectionists from holding federal office. But obviously Congress has enacted statutes, including one still in effect, Section 2383 of Title 18 prohibits insurrection. It's a federal criminal statute. And if you're convicted of that, it says shall be disqualified from holding any office. And so there is a federal statute on the books, but President Trump has not been charged with that. So what are we to make of that?
So, like Clarence Thomas, Justice Thomas, who was brilliant, Kavanaugh saying there are already federal statutes. This is why this is going to be an unmitigated catastrophe for Democrats, an absolute disaster. There are already federal statutes. You would need Congress to get involved. Okay? You would need Congress to get involved. So, all those YouTube channels that you see with Trump is petrified, Trump is frightened, the walls are closing in on Trump running for his life, Trump, his campaign is on the ropes, Trump, the walls are closing in, he's really scared this time. You couldn't find a more courageous and brave political candidate than Trump. Okay? That's why Democrats spend millions upon millions on public relations executives, because they're so petrified of media. Trump doesn't care about media. He doesn't care about intel officials. He doesn't care about Hollywood. He doesn't care about, endless newspaper negative coverage in cable. He doesn't care. He just, we had record low poverty with Trump, record highs in household median income, record low unemployment, real wages up. Real wages have been down for most of Biden's tenure. Poverty is up under Biden. Interest rates are through the roof, 7 to 8% to buy a home. That's why inflation is down. By the way, Biden's administration ignored inflation as being a problem. Then they flooded the country full of millions of barrels of strategic petroleum reserves while begging other countries for oil and then pontificating about the planet. Typical Democrats. Biggest hypocrites on the planet. But anyway, let's continue.
Two things, Your Honor. Section 2383 was initially enacted about 6 years before Section.
One thing also, with all due respect to the Colorado lawyers, the justices don't want history lessons. This is like Clarence Thomas, Kavanaugh, Roberts. They don't want history lessons. They want a logical response to why Congress or the federal government, who have the power to disqualify Trump if indeed he committed a rebellion, which you would have to be stupid to believe that he did, because he obviously didn't. If that's a rebellion, every day that summer was a rebellion, and I agree with why people peacefully demonstrated. But he did not get convicted on a federal level, nor will he ever he won't even spend 1 second in prison or jail. Not even if the hush money thing convicts him, because that'll be overturned eventually. Because the FEC fined Clinton and the DNC, not Trump. But he was not on a federal. There were no federal statutes, nor did Congress level any laws against Trump to disqualify him. So you can go through all the history lessons you want. It ain't going to work. And this is going to be a devastating defeat for Democrats, because their entire fantasy is going to be dismantled by the Supreme Court. Colorado and every other, maybe two or three, Colorado and every liberal justice or judge or attorney or lawyer will have to concede because of the Supreme Court overthrowing or overturning, reversing the Colorado ban, that Trump did not engage in a rebellion. He absolutely did not. Nor does a state have the right to prevent him from being on a ballot for the presidential contest because justices read the New York Times or MSNBC and CNN and Washington Post and saw only one type of footage and not the other footage where people were let in peacefully into the building.
It wasn't meant as implementing legislation related to Section 3. And I would emphasize that by the time that Section 3 was ratified, most Confederates had already received criminal pardons.
I guess the question is a little bit different, which is if the concern you have, which I understand, is that insurrectionists should not be able to hold federal office, there is a tool to ensure that that does not happen, namely federal prosecution of insurrectionists. And if convicted, Congress made clear you are automatically barred from holding a federal office. That tool exists, you agree, and could be used, but has not, could be used against someone who committed insurrection. You agree with that?
That's absolutely right, Your Honor. But I would just make the point that the framers of Section 3 clearly understood that criminal prosecutions weren't sufficient.
Why would a person go into why would anyone psychoanalyze the framers of the Constitution and give another history lesson and talk about the emotional and psychological state or what was going on in the mind of the framers of the Constitution? Why would you go into what they were thinking as opposed to saying, oh, here's an example that on this candidate, a state, in the 1800s banned a candidate from running for president, and it was upheld by Congress and the Supreme Court, and therefore we can ban Trump. Why can't you just do that? Because there is no example. So then the psychoanalysis kicks in.
Because oftentimes insurrectionists go unpunished, as was the case in the Civil War, and that the least we can do is impose a civil disqualification penalty so that even if we don't have the stomach to throw someone in jail.
Well, they had the quo warranto provision that was in effect then from 1870 until 1948, but then obviously that dropped out and hasn't been seen as necessary since then. Last question. In trying to figure out what Section 3 means, and to the extent it's elusive language or vague language, what about the idea that we should think about democracy, think about the right of the people to elect candidates of their choice, of letting the people decide, because your position has the effect of disenfranchising voters to a significant degree. And should that be something, does that come in when we think about should we read Section 3 this way or read it that way? What about the background principle, if you agree, of democracy?
I'd like to.
So you know how Democrats are always saying, oh, well, Republicans are not allowing people to choose to vote, and they're making it difficult for people. The Democrats are trying to actually remove Trump from a presidential contest, therefore denying 70+ million Americans who chose him 4 years ago. Republicans have, I don't care about Republican, I don't care about the Republican Party. I like Trump. I also like RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. Love Tulsi Gabbard. Love RFK Jr. Okay? Rand Paul. I love anyone, Vivek, anyone against never-ending military conflict. And then I'll go from there. I'm a one-issue voter. The most important issue on the planet is never-ending military conflict. You vote for Trump, you're not going to get endless military conflict. You vote for Biden or Democrats, you will. We've seen this with Biden. I told everyone, and I was right, unfortunately, that if Trump lost and Biden won, which, we see mashed potato brains is the entire world is collapsing. We see this. And I said, We are going to have foreign policy catastrophe after foreign policy catastrophe. And that's what took place. We had numerous peace deals with Trump, in addition to an amazing economy. What is there not to like about Donald Trump? I mean, you don't like his personality? Oh, really? Do you like Biden's personality? Do you like the vice president's personality? You like Hillary Clinton's personality? You like President Obama's personality? Well, maybe. He actually has a good personality. He destroyed Libya, but he has a very good personality. But I'd rather have Trump's personality. I'd rather have Trump's personality than Biden's any day of the week. Hey, come on, man. Anyway, let's continue.
To make 3 points on that, Justice Kavanaugh. The first is that constitutional safeguards are for the purpose of safeguarding our democracy, not just for the next election cycle, but for generations to come. And second, Section 3 is designed to protect our democracy in that very way. The framers of Section 3 knew from painful experience that those who had violently broken their oaths to the Constitution.
Why are you getting into the mindset of James Madison or the framers? You can't if there isn't an answer to denying 70 million or 80 million Americans their choice for president. The answer isn't, well, you know what, that's what the James Madison and the framers of the Constitution really felt. Let's listen to Trump really quickly. The audio isn't fantastic, but this is Trump, his victory speech yesterday. He basically secured the nomination. There's no chance. He secured the nomination even before the first contest, even before Iowa. But this is Trump.
Thank you very much. This has been an exciting day, hasn't it? Over 80 will be happy with it. 98%. Incredible right from the beginning. Your governor, Joe Lombardo. The governor who's here to Stavros for his
Doing the best I can with volume, everybody.
Michael McDonald. Has anybody ever heard of Michael McDonald? He's taken a lot of abuse unfairly, and I just want to thank you, Michael. He's a strong man. He's a good man. And we have a person from North Dakota. Did anybody ever hear of North Dakota?
At Crew, we
And he's the governor, and I watched him for a long time. He was a very successful man. He's been an incredible governor, and he's here with Catherine, his great wife, and I just want to thank you very much for doing that. And a man who likes a company called Johnson & Johnson, Mr. Woody Johnson, Suzanne, thank you very much for that. We also have some people in the audience that are really something. If you're a golfer, Bryson DeChambeau, he hits a long ball. We love Bryson. And Patrick Reed, who won the Masters recently, and he's a great player. Wherever you may be in this room, thank you very much. I like golf, and I like people that know how to play golf. There aren't too many people that can do it. If you like to fight, if you want to fight, you can fight this guy. He's available, but it's not going to last long. You won't do very well. Sean Strickland, really. You don't want to fight him. Where's Sean? He's a nasty looking guy. Look at those ears. You look at those ears. Oh. I looked at him. I said, I want no part of him. Thank you very much, Sean. We appreciate it. Kevin McCarthy's here. Kevin. Whoa. Thank you, Kevin. That's very nice. That is very nice. We appreciate it. Did anyone ever hear of the Nelk Boys? Because Dana White called me. He said, would you do an interview with the Nelk Boys? I said, who are the Nelk Boys? I did this crazy interview. We had like 22 million hits. I never saw anything like it. Where are the Nelk Oh, thank you. Okay, have a good time. Look at them. I just want to say that this has been an incredible period of time. I think for our country, for the world has not been like this for many, many years. When you look at the attack on Israel or the attack on Ukraine with Russia, this would have never happened. The Israeli attack would have Russia fighting, and again what happened in Israel. All of the death, and understand why you need leadership, and this country does not have leadership. It has no idea what's happening. It's lost its way. It's a failing nation, and we're not going to have a failing nation much longer. I just want to really thank the great people of Nevada, because this was a turnout. I don't know if you know, you broke the all-time record. The all-time caucus record was broken, and we kept waiting and waiting because they're all flowing in from all parts of your state. They all want to be. I said, well, wait. But I said, they're going to be very upset when they come here, and everyone's gone. But I said, we have to start. But this has been a tremendous state. And, if we win this state, we easily win the election in November. We have to win the election. And great countries. Thank you very much. But great countries are all about a lot of things, but two things in particular. You have to have strong borders, and you have to have free, fair, and honest elections. And we don't have either. Somebody else. I retired it. That was a good night for Hillary. She was very happy that night. That was one of the best nights. I retired the name from Hillary and put it onto Joe, Crooked Joe. But we have a country that has tremendous.
He's saying he retired the Crooked Hillary name, and now it's Crooked Joe.
Tremendous potential, but if anything bad happens in this next election, if this election isn't won last night, and they won by 44 points, none of the above. So I want to congratulate. But seriously, we have to get back. This was a great day. This was a great night. Our Supreme Court hopefully will be doing something in terms of helping our country and preserving democracy. We have to preserve our democracy. And I think they had a very, very interesting day and a very beautiful day, perhaps. I think it was really a very beautiful sight to watch. And it's the way it's supposed to be. And hopefully the decision will be a very important decision. But there's never been anything like it. In the polls, we're leading everybody. We are right now. Is there any way we can call the election for next Tuesday? That's all I want. I want to call the election for next Tuesday, but we're going to make our country great again. We're going to make it great. We're going to make it greater than ever before. The enthusiasm and the turnout, Doug and I were talking.
By the way, never forget when Andrew Cuomo, who presided over one of the worst responses to you-know-what, okay, in this country. You can look this up on YouTube. He goes to an audience of liberal Democrats. He actually said, America was never great. And everyone gasps. What? He goes, America was never great. And it's like, why would you say that as an American politician? If America was never great, what country on the earth is great if not America? Of course there's problems. Of course there's historical injustices. Every country has that. Every family isn't perfect in the world. There's not a person who's perfect in the world. But this is a country where you can start off poor and become a millionaire. Not many countries in the world can you start off poor, can you be born in abject poverty and become a billionaire. It is impossible in most other countries. It is possible in the United States of America. Okay? You compare the United States, there's the least amount of R-word prejudice here than in other countries. The least amount. There's the greatest upward mobility for everyone of every background in the United States of America. That's why the whole world wants to come to the United States of America. In terms of foreign policy, do we make colossal mistakes? Yeah, it's more than a mistake. Tragedy, beyond belief. And who votes for it? Oh, that's right. Kerry and Clinton and Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld and Biden. Democrats vote for it, ladies and gentlemen. Democrats. Okay, you could look at LBJ. Up to Biden. Democrats have voted for never-ending military conflict and pushed for never-ending military conflict. So, the same people that resonates with the left, they say, well, America was never great. Well, I don't know. Is there a country you'd rather live in? Because you're living in this country. There is no country that, in my view, is greater than the United States of America. But that was just to spite Trump. Andrew Cuomo said America was never great. Then they said he was America's governor. Then I think he won an Oscar or an Emmy or something. And then they withdrew the Hollywood gave him, I think it was an Emmy or something. And then they withdrew the Emmy, which was typical. Anyway, let's continue.
I don't think you've ever seen anything like it, right? You were at various of the caucus sites, and they both came back and they said, we've never seen anything like it. Would you like to say a few words? Yeah, please.
Thank you, President Trump. I just want to build on that. At the caucus sites that Catherine and I were at tonight, the lines were stringing around the block in those buildings, people waiting out in the cold. And I do want to say thank you to all of you and all the people in Nevada that voted tonight, because you're sending a signal to the nation. One is that this primary is over. President Trump has won. That's the signal you're sending. And the second thing that really matters is that all of you that voted tonight, that came out tonight, need to show up in November, but bring somebody with you, because Nevada is going to be a swing state and President Trump is going to win it in November.
If you're in Vegas and Reno, do you want Biden? Do you really want Biden when you rely so much on tourism and people with disposable income? People have record highs in credit card debt. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be a devastating stock market crash. By the way, subscribe also. If you're new to this channel, hit subscribe right now, and also subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel and the Bitcoin Crash channel. I will be doing work to build those channels. Ladies and gentlemen, we're almost at 210,000 subs. Tell your friends about this channel and hit subscribe if you're new. Why is this not working?
The block in those buildings, people waiting out in the cold. And I do want to say thank you to all of you and all the people in Nevada that voted tonight, because you're sending a signal to the nation. One is that this primary is over. President Trump has won. That's the signal you're sending. And the second thing that really matters is that all of you that voted tonight, that came out tonight, need to show up in November, but bring somebody with you, because Nevada is going to be a swing state and President Trump is going to win it in November.
There's no more audio now.
E-commerce is...
This is even better. Winning Nevada is propelling us. We're going to win the election, and this is good. You're going to see you're going to see Donald J. Trump, another great president.
So, God bless you all. We have to save our country. We're going to save our country. We're going to make America greater than it's ever been. We have to stop it. We have to close up our borders. We have to close them up. I believe you'll have 19 million people by the time this guy is out of office. 19 million, that's substantially bigger than New York State. And these people, many of them are coming from prisons and jails. They're coming from mental institutions. We're going to get out there, we're going to win, we're going to have a great election, we're going to turn our country around, you're going to be so happy. We were energy independent. Think about it. 3 years ago, we were energy independent, and now we're trying to buy from Venezuela. You're getting here. And remember this, we have more, I call it liquid gold, we have more liquid gold under our feet. Doug, you know that better than anybody. We have more liquid gold under our feet than any other nation, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia, more than anybody. And we're going to take advantage of it. So go back home, rest, and then come back, because we're going to turn this whole thing around. If we win the state of Nevada, it's over for them, and our country's going to be better, more beautiful than ever before. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We love you.
Ladies and gentlemen, to my super chat, by the way, thank you. Your support is greatly, greatly, greatly appreciated. You know, Nevada is a swing state, and I tell you what, if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe. We have a really important year this year. The Supreme Court is going to give an historic, very soon, within a day, less than a week, who knows, tonight, who knows, an historic rebuke of liberal sensibilities being infused within American politics. It is not reality. It is simply not reality to say that Trump committed a rebellion. It is also completely unethical and un-American to prevent a candidate from running on a national stage for the presidential election because you think he committed a crime. I don't care what you think. I don't care what anyone thinks. If he's convicted and it's a fair trial and he's convicted and there's evidence that he committed a rebellion, that's one thing. But there's zero evidence. Furthermore, people were let into a building. Only supporters of Trump lost their lives that day, and a law enforcement official lost his life after that day. And he told people to go peacefully. The reason that there was chaos is that people did not listen to him. That's the problem. People did not listen to him. And you have a situation, ladies and gentlemen, where they tried desperately to do something that was a long shot. Okay, it's like a Hail Mary pass in football. They tried to prevent Trump from becoming president by saying he committed something he didn't commit. Hi, Caroline. Thank you. God bless you. Angie, thank you. Paul, hello. They tried to accuse Trump of something he didn't do. Just like within a phone call they impeached him over, just like being an operative of the Kremlin. Okay, they tried to prevent him from being on a national stage. And they're talking about disenfranchising voters all the time. There's 70 to 80 million Americans that they would deny Trump from. And they don't even care. They won't even bat an eye. They don't care at all. And then they pontificate about everyone being given a chance to choose a presidential candidate. And so be here on this channel, ladies and gentlemen. Be here. Think of this channel when the Supreme Court officially makes its announcement, because it will be, if not 9-0, Kevin, hello, it will be 5-4, 6-3, at least 6-3, I think. Okay, maybe even 7-2. This will be a huge defeat, an absolutely enormous defeat for the Democratic Party. This is the only chance they have, and Clarence Thomas and everyone else has guaranteed. The Supreme Court now is guaranteed a Trump victory. Thank God. Now we can get back to record low poverty like we had with Trump, a fact. Record highs in household median income, a fact. Real wages up, unlike real wages being down with Biden because of inflation that only went down because interest rates. Whenever they say, well, Biden took care of inflation, Biden didn't even think inflation was a problem. And then he released strategic petroleum reserves. Queen Bee, hello. He released strategic petroleum reserves. Over half of America's strategic petroleum reserves. Then begged other countries for oil. Then raised interest rates, so now a mortgage payment is twice as much. You are going, if you buy a house in Biden's America, you are paying twice as much every month for a mortgage. Is that worth mean tweets? Is that really worth mean tweets? I'll deal with the mean tweets if my mortgage payment is half as expensive. Hit subscribe if you're new to this channel. Be here tonight, by the way, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll be here 10 p.m. Eastern Time, ladies and gentlemen. Be here. And what can I tell you other than hit subscribe? This is a beautiful, beautiful moment in American history. We're all lucky to be alive watching the most monumental, biblical, historic comeback from a man who is literally, Trump is the definition of punk rock. He's the Obi-Wan Kenobi of politics. Okay, you think of punk rock, you think of the Ramones, the Pistols, the Kennedys, like MC5 isn't punk rock, but it comes to mind, Motorhead, it's not punk rock, there's, rock and roll, metal, but you think of these bands that didn't care what people thought of them and just, were true to themselves. And Trump is true to himself. That's why suddenly you see Hollywood celebrities. Oh, I like Trump now. Oh, okay. Hey, the water's warm. Hey, the water's warm. Come. You can start liking Trump. Okay. I took heat, and oh my God, people were so upset. I lost friends, family. They disowned me. My friends disowned me. Okay. I had people calling me, I can't be your friend anymore. You like Trump. What? I put friendship and family above politics. If you don't put friendship and family above politics, you've got problems. But this is the greatest political comeback of all time. And, he's the punk rock president. Trump is the, honestly, I coined both phrases, but maybe not the punk rock president, but definitely he's the Obi-Wan Kenobi of politics. Nirvana was great. The Obi-Wan Kenobi of politics. The more you try to harm him, the worse it is for you. Anyway, hit subscribe. Be here at 10 p.m. Eastern tonight. Love you.